just give you a sense of what's going on in New York. Obviously, there's massive devastation in New Jersey, and also, I mean, in Connecticut, and in I think down in Delaware, and I don't know as much in the Carolinas, although I think some. I mean,
The Rockaways in Queens.
well, yes, I mean throughout New York, the New York area. We're now at 62 people dead in the U.S., 131 worldwide. Haiti just, I mean, already was in dire straits. What's going on in Haiti is just absolutely devastating. 34 people have died in New York. Matt was talking about a guy in Queens, just in his apartment, right, in his house.
Yeah, he was in his home, just laying in his bed, and a tree crashed through his house, crushed him in his bed, and he died. He was the first death in New York, I believe.
And what's going on in Manhattan now? You know, what's stunning to me is because I live uptown on the west side, Upper West Side, and you know, we had a lot of wind blowing. I was watching a crane. I was showing Milo the pictures of the crane that basically, I don't know, reversed itself and was hanging by, maybe not so much a thread, but down in Midtown. And there was a crane that we can see out our window, and I was showing her exactly what had happened to the crane in Midtown. And by halfway through the day, I realized that crane was spinning on its axis. This is a crane that is 20 stories up plus another 10 worth of jib. And that thing was spinning. But aside from that and a couple of down trees and some branches, not so bad. Below 23rd Street, maybe even 30th Street in Manhattan, their power is still out. In some places, there's no water. And we are talking about hundreds of thousands of people, well into the hundreds of thousands of people, without power and plumbing, in some instances, downtown New York. No cell phone service, downtown New York. As far north as 23rd Street on 10th Avenue, massive flooding. I know a couple of artists who lost all of their work in galleries because of the flooding there, which is not necessarily comparable to people who are living without power and water, but and businesses shut down. Even where we are on 38th Street, many businesses not open because people can't get into the city. Now, kudos to the MTA. They have opened up some subway lines, which is, in my estimation, an amazing feat. I think this is much earlier than anybody anticipated. We're still looking at the biggest storm and, I guess, infusion of water into the subway system in 108 years, in the 108 years that the subway system has existed.
I believe their exact words were, it's the biggest disaster the subway system has ever seen.
And what we're seeing in the city is unprecedented and should not be a surprise in that way. That it would be unprecedented because our baseline of the sea levels versus 100 years ago or even 50 years ago is 6 to 12 inches higher. And this is a function of global warming. We know the seas are rising. We also know that climate change amps up the factors that contribute to big storms. Yes, there were hurricanes in this. There's been hurricanes in New York before, particularly problematic for Long Island, in Worcester. My folks always used to talk about the 1953, I think it was, hurricane. But the size of the storms and the baseline have changed. Because when you have warming oceans, it provides just more energy for storms. The atmosphere also retains more moisture because it has warmed. And then this gets into the storms as well.
Right after the hurricane, there was a giant snowstorm in West Virginia. How does that even make sense?
Well, that's that because it banged into a nor'easter. But the bottom line is that we know that the preponderance of science has told us that this was going to happen. It's not surprised that it's happened. And we still have a tremendous amount of denial in this country. And this could be attributed to a lot of different things. Now, on the upside, there has been far more coverage of the concept of global warming in the past 2 days, both on cable news and particularly in print media. Was Business Week, I think its cover this week is it's global warming, stupid. And which is, surprising to the extent that we have literally 150, 200, I think it was $1 million spent by fossil fuel industry, essentially, on advertising on television and probably in print media as well. The headwinds against the acceptance of global warming are massive. I think I wrote this in the email blast we sent out today, but when Chris Hayes, I think it was, about a month ago, had said that not since slavery have we seen an institution or a sector, essentially, in this country that was so massive in terms of financial stakes, in terms of it being overturned, in terms of, from a policy standpoint, from a society standpoint, from a political standpoint, being reversed in some fashion. And so these are the headwinds that we are looking at. And it's important, it's important to contemplate where the forces are aligned to making it hard for society to accept this argument. Because look, it's not just a question of acknowledging that climate change exists. It is going to mean, in many respects, a fundamental reorganizing of the way we live our lives and our economies. Yes, to a certain extent, we can talk about green jobs. We can talk about creating more wind and solar power. But inevitably, to genuinely address this, it means both taking leadership around the world in terms of diminishing the use of fossil fuels. And it's also going to mean, at home, changing the way that we structure things. From how much we use cars, to the way that we set up local economies, to the way that we plan cities, the way that we plan communities, to the way that we invest in things like rail, on and on and on. Sort of weaning us off of this consumer-based economy. I mean, it's almost impossible to imagine the implications of it at this point because there's so few opportunities to sort of express what that looks like. And it creates more headwinds.